Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Three's In. Bobo here. So, every now and then, I come across a story, even today, that's just too good not to share, and such is the case with this story I'm about to tell you. It came out of the blue. I received an email from a viewer, and by the way, I really appreciate your feedback. It's heartwarming. So this guy wrote to me, and he was very kind and very gracious with his comments. And toward the end, he asked if I could give him a call, or he could call me, whichever. Well, sure. So I gave him a call last week, and we got to chatting. And as he told me this story, I began to think, holy cow, this is fantastic. And it's too good not to share. So the other night at Quiet Birds, I stood up and told his story, and I had asked him to put the high points of the story down in bullet form so I wouldn't miss anything. I have his notes with me now, and I'm going to share the story from his notes because I don't want to miss anything. It's a good story, and when I get to the end, you'll understand why. He says, "It is indeed a small world to think we both know Don, and by happenstance, you and I crossed paths. Don was the best man at my first cousin's wedding in May 1959 in Greenville, Mississippi." Okay, that's the basis of the story. I'm going to tie it all together here in a second. Don and Fred Wilson were best friends, and both were first lieutenant IPs teaching T-33s in Greenville, Mississippi. I was a 13-year-old farm kid who lived in the middle of the cotton fields northeast of Monroe, Louisiana, and I'd never been in an airplane, but boy did I want to. And for those of us who have seen or looked at airplanes as kids, this really speaks to us. Don and Fred were battling as to who would be the first to take this kid on for his first flight once they learned that this kid wanted to fly. Fred won out. He told Don he had first rights because he had married my cousin. Both took me flying in a J3 Cub. Many fond memories from 65 years ago every time I see a J3. It's things like this that we do for kids that have such an impact. The time we take to spend with kids can be so positive as you see here. Don was the Tom Cruise of his day, a good-looking guy, and the girls were crazy about him. He spent a good time taking me flying and giving me beautiful plastic model airplanes that he had built and many brand new model airplane kits. The T-33 training program was eventually discontinued in 1960 in Greenville. It was hard to say goodbye to Don and I imagine Fred. I was visiting my uncle and aunt in Greenville. Don wanted to come and see me, and I knew it would be the last time I would ever see him, and I dreaded saying goodbye. In pure Don Schmenk style, he had to take me to a model airplane shop, and he loaded me up with practically an example of every model kit in the store. I protested, telling him one kit was all I'd need, but he insisted. Got back to my aunt and uncle's home. It's time to say goodbye to my friend Don. I wanted to be brave. Boys don't cry, girls do. I could not help myself. As he was about to leave, I ran to him. I put my arms around him, and I sobbed uncontrollably. I love this guy so much for having spent so much time with a boy who thought he and Fred walked on water. Don told me, "Pete, we will see each other again." But I did not think so. He kept his promise. After a while, he was transferred to San Antonio, I guess for training, and he drove out of his way to see me and my family on his way back from training, on his way to Valdosta, Georgia. After I graduated from college on the GI Bill, my wife and I visited Don and his wife, Mary Jane, at Biloxi, Mississippi, where he was training Vietnamese pilots in the T-28. Don later went on to fly F-100s in Vietnam. He was almost the first one I called when I got my private pilot's license in 1985. Took him a while, but eventually got it. Don donated several of his museum-grade models to William P. Hobby Airport Museum there in Houston. Don had a great impact on a 13-year-old boy who is now 78 and who will forever remember his friendship and thoughtfulness. And he signs off, your new friend, William H. As he was telling this story, I'm driving down I-75 on my way to Menards. As he's telling this story, I just felt my eyes welling up. Because I knew Don. Don passed away a couple of years ago, but he was a member of our Quiet Birds chapter. And my God, everything this guy said about Don is true. And Don was a man of grace. You could see when you walked up and put your hand out, shake hands with him, you could see his eyes light up. He was very interested in people and always seemed to take time with people. And so last Monday night, I just couldn't wait to share that story with the other members of Quiet Birds. There were several members that knew Don a lot more than I did, a lot better than I did. But I'm just so grateful I did have the opportunity to meet him and know a little bit about him and hear some of his experiences flying F-100s. As a side note, in Findlay, Ohio, stupid clock, but I love it. As a side note, we used to stop at this coffee shop that he owned in Findlay, Ohio, and his daughter worked there. I don't know, I think she might even run it, I'm not sure. But her name is Kelly, and he named her Kelly because that's where he was stationed when she was born. At any rate, like I said, I picked up on the fact that I knew Don Schmenk, and I just loved listening to Bill tell that story. So, Bill, thanks for calling in with that. Thanks for allowing me to share it, and I hope the story leaves you feeling as warm about people as I feel today sharing it again with you. This is Bobo. We'll see you next time. Base gear. Stop.